Hey guys, it is Friday, November 20th. The time is 4:50 p.m. and the temperature outside is 14 degrees Celsius. I'm here at Sherbourne Station in downtown Toronto. And the plan for this one is to head on up to Sherbourne Street. And then I'll walk south through downtown and I'll zigzag across a bunch of various different streets. And I'll talk a bit about this impending lockdown the city is about to face. So this here is Bloor Street East. Now I'm heading south on Sherbourne Street. And just over an hour ago, the Premier of Ontario announced that the City of Toronto would be moving from the red control zone and into the gray control zone, which is otherwise known as full lockdown mode. Along with the City of Toronto, the neighboring Peel region will also be moving into the gray control zone. Peel region is just to the west of Toronto and includes the cities of Toronto and Brampton. This is Howard Street, and there's a look east in towards St. Jamestown. And I know this channel is mostly about exploring the city and talking about some of the sights and interesting buildings and places. So I do apologize if there are some personal opinions injected into this walk, a bit more so than normal. It's kind of hard not to, given the topic at hand. And I think what I'll do is I will turn west on Isabella and head on over to Jarvis Street. I don't really have a set route in mind for this walk. There's a look at St. Jamestown West Park. So you might be wondering, just what does full lockdown entail? From what I gathered from the press conference I just watched, at least in terms of how it pertains to the City of Toronto, that means grocery stores, pharmacies, and big box stores will be allowed to remain open, subject to capacity limits. Although this place won't be allowed to open their outdoor patio, and this lockdown is effective as of Monday at 12:01 a.m. So small retailers will not be allowed to serve customers inside unless they are deemed essential services. So they will be limited to curbside pickup and delivery, and that includes retailers and shopping malls. So the Eaton Center and Yorkdale and all the other malls will mostly be closed except for essential services and I think the big box retailers. So that's a kick in the pants for small retailers. And as I alluded to, restaurants and cafes and bars will not be allowed to serve customers dine-in or outdoors on patios. So all those expensive heat lamps that restaurants and bars have acquired will seem to be going to waste. As well, there will be no indoor private gatherings permitted with anyone outside of the household. I think there was an exception for people like me who live alone. We are allowed to pick one special other person who also lives alone. That was nice of them to throw us a bone. Although, to be fair, I haven't really been meeting other people throughout most of this coronavirus pandemic anyways. And places of worship will be limited to 10 people, so that includes churches, mosques, and temples, gyms, sports facilities, cinemas, casinos, and personal services, so that would be hair salons and any type of beauty parlor or anything along those lines will not be allowed to open. And they did say people caught in violation of these rules will be fined. It is something in the neighborhood of $750 for having an illegal private gathering. Larger gatherings can be fined up to $10,000. They did note there will be additional financial relief in place for small businesses, but that was something only in the neighborhood of $600 million or so. And weddings will be limited to 10 people indoors and 10 people outdoors. The premier did urge people to buy locally instead of Amazon. I thought that comment was a bit ironic, since at first he pleaded with everyone to buy from local retailers. And then he said, go online and shop if you can. Well, the first place that comes to mind for most people is going to be Amazon. And this here is Jarvis Street I'm now heading south on. It's also worth noting that, at least to start next year's NBA season, the Toronto Raptors will be playing out of Tampa Bay. They were not able to get the necessary permissions in place to operate their season from the Scotiabank Arena in Toronto. The Premier urged citizens not to panic buy like they did last time around, so it remains to be seen if we'll see those paper towel and toilet paper shortages like we saw in early spring. That was kind of ridiculous. The shelves just got wiped out, and it took retailers a while to clue into limiting the number of purchases per customer. Of course, it didn't take long for all the shelves to be fully stocked again, so that was kind of a silly phenomenon. But what I found to be perhaps the most ironic, or maybe insulting to a small business owner in Toronto and the region of Peel, is that the region of York, which sits just to the north of Toronto, so along Steeles Avenue, you'll find the cities of Markham and Vaughan, as well as Richmond Hill, just to the north of that, I believe. They are not going into the gray zone, so you'll be able to go there and visit a shopping mall and get a haircut. So I imagine a lot of people that have access to a vehicle or live closer to that region are just going to do that. They didn't really clarify why York is allowed to open, but Peel and Toronto are getting shuttered. You'd think just to be consistent within the larger region, you would have to shut all three down. Here's a look at the Keg Mansion on the other side of Jarvis. And the next street to the south of here will be Wellesley, but I've never gone down this street, Church Square, on this channel before. And this will lead us to a nice park. That guy would have walked right through me if I didn't step to the side. Looks like there's a development plan for this area. So I don't quite know what to make of these new lockdown restrictions, but I definitely have some criticism for the decision to allow York to open, but not Toronto. I also kind of question why big box retailers are allowed to open, but smaller retailers aren't, and simply limit the number of customers they're allowed to, say 4 or 5. That would allow them to stay in business and keep their employees coming in and paid. And I've heard from different sources that that's actually a much safer environment than what you'll find in larger stores, where it's an everybody in the pool kind of attempt. There's some dogs having a good time in the dog park there. And I didn't see a sign, but I think this is Barbara Hall Park. Or could it be Cawthorne Square Park? My local knowledge is failing. Looks like there's some kind of event or gathering being planned. This is Barbara Hall Park. That's good to know. She was mayor of Toronto from, I think, 94 to 97 and was ousted by Mel Lastman when the megacity was formed. I think she was the second female mayor of the city of Toronto. June Rowlands served shortly before Barbara Hall did. And this is the Church and Wellesley Village. So I'm now walking south along Church Street. This is sort of the home of the LGBTQ community in the city. And it's ground zero for the rather large Pride Festival they hold every year, except for this year, of course. So I think I'll head south down Church for a few blocks, and then I'll walk to the east for a bit, or rather to the west. I'll continue this pattern.
I'm pretty sure it's like how many exports, it's like a big, it's really Python-esque. It's a sketch show in which they just sort of...
It'll be really interesting to come see what this place looks like in a few days, or at least after Monday. It really should just be restaurants serving takeout, and pharmacies and banks, and not a whole lot else that'll be open. This is the intersection of Church and Wellesley. And just to the west you'll find a Wellesley subway station. One thing they didn't seem to emphasize in the press conference that was emphasized earlier in the spring was the idea of just stay home. Maybe I just missed that part, but I think you're going to have a real hard time telling people not to go outside. I do think it's a rather huge shame that these patios aren't going to be able to open. There is Craig's Cookies, and I wonder if people are going to get out this weekend, tonight and Saturday and Sunday, and fill these patios up and support these businesses and take advantage of one of their last chances to get out and eat a meal or have a drink at one of these establishments. We don't really have a timeline for when the lockdown restrictions will end. And they didn't announce any plans or guidelines revolving around Christmas, where obviously people are going to make attempts to see their families. And it's worth noting that unlike New York, schools will remain open. Let's go down Alexander Street. Here's another street I can't recall having been down yet. And I will take this over to Yonge, and then I'll maybe cross Yonge over to Bay Street. I'll probably end up filming on Yonge soon anyways. Maybe even towards the end of this walk. There's kind of a neat view. You can see a... Oh, no problem. I don't know why he said sorry. I was the one walking into his way. This is kind of a not often seen view of the back side of Maple Leaf Gardens, which is the former home of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and countless notable events which I've described in previous walks. But it's now a supermarket and skating rink for Ryerson University. There's a look at the moon looming in the background. I apologize if the low light scenes in this video have a bit of noise. I probably won't have time to run this through a denoising filter before I upload it. Doing that does improve the night video, but it adds a good 4 to 5 hours of rendering time to the videos, and since I don't have a video for tomorrow, I'd rather get this up at the usual time. So that is Yonge Street off in the distance. And I think this is where Buddies in Bad Times Theater is. I've never been there, but it's my understanding that that's a LGBTQ performance theater. I've always kind of seen it from Yonge Street and wondered about it. Although now with this pretty large condo in front of it, you're not going to be able to see it anymore from Yonge Street. At least not with craning your neck down at Alexander Street. That's what this is called. And there's the Alexander Street Parquet. There's a look at the theater. There seems to be something going on. And they have some tables set up outside. Alright, maybe I'll just head south on Yonge Street here for a block. There's the remaining remnant of the St. Charles Tavern. That was part of a 19th century fire hall. I've always kind of liked the view south down Yonge Street from this particular park. And there's a look north up Yonge Street. So for me, I don't think this lockdown is going to change a whole lot. I really don't have much of a social life these days other than interacting with people on the live streams, so that's not going to change. I'm not much for shopping and tend to get most of my stuff online anyways. And I've only had 2 haircuts all year, so... No, I had 3. I had 1 in January, and then 1 during, is it either stage 2 or stage 3, when they were finally allowed to open salons again, and then I had 1 just a couple of weeks ago. That was the intersection of Yonge and College. Well, College on the west side, and on the east side that is Carlton Street. And that's where you'll find Maple Leaf Gardens. So as I was saying, I don't think this lockdown is going to change a whole lot for me. I'm still allowed to go outside and get my exercise, so I'll be doing that with my camera in tow. I won't be meeting others or socializing with others, as private gatherings are not permitted. I've always thought it was completely harmless to go out alone and to keep your distance and wear a mask wherever it was required of you. I'm sure there'll be some negative people in the comments again. But the reality is, you're just not going to get people to lock themselves inside. We saw a very high demand for bicycles the first time around. And I think these restrictions are quite similar to the stage 1 restrictions we saw at the end of winter or early spring. And that's when bicycle sales kind of went through the roof and you couldn't find them anywhere, as that was a good option for people to get out of the house. There's a rather large Toronto police station. I went there once to get a criminal background check before I moved to Korea. That was required. So if you are a fan of the channel and these videos, don't worry, they're not going anywhere. I'll still be live streaming. It's just unfortunate that there'll be more documenting what it's like while everything's closed again. I was hoping the next sort of phase of videos would be the opposite. It'd be nice to see the city in full swing again. But public health comes first, of course. And I have conveyed that I'm a bit frustrated by some of the measures we're seeing. By the way, this is Bay Street. We're now heading southbound. But that doesn't mean I want to open everything back up and disregard public health approach. And this is College Park. I am, after all, just one of millions in the city. My opinions are no more or less valid than anyone else. And I'm not a scientist or medical expert. But I do think the collateral damage on small businesses is a bit heavy. And we've definitely seen a negative impact on people's health, their mental health and well-being. There's people that have deferred treatments or not been diagnosed with the disease they might otherwise have been if we weren't under these stricter conditions. Necessary surgeries have been delayed. People are losing their livelihoods with their businesses, and I think we're definitely seeing a transfer of wealth upwards in the grand scheme of things, as big box retailers and places like Amazon will continue to profit, but the smaller guys won't. And a lot of the bigger institutions are just simply laying off their frontline staff or having less of them in. So it's really the small guys that are really feeling it. I personally don't understand why we couldn't just have small retailers open and limit their capacity to, say, 4 to 5 people. There's definitely schools of thought and some data out there that suggest that's actually safer than this everyone in the pool, big box store only approach. Again, I don't fully understand the numbers behind it. I just wish there was greater justification for these measures by the province. I think I've seen this guy down on the waterfront. Skating around in exactly the same manner. And there's the shops at Aura, which I featured in a video about this particular rather dead shopping mall. I'll certainly come back in the coming weeks and wander around downtown and see what it's like. I'm willing to bet we'll still see people out, we'll still see people socializing, which I don't necessarily agree with. They'll still do it. There's been very little enforcement of the existing rules in place. I'd mentioned this on my live streams, but they're asking everyone to wear a mask and cover their nose and mouth on the TTC. But they don't ban food and drinks. And as a result of that, you see a lot of people improperly wearing their masks while they nurse a Starbucks drink. So why are you putting these restrictions in place and not enforcing them, and then taking further actions even though they didn't bother to enforce the previous ones? I don't know. The same goes for the people you see without masks. They don't enforce that. This is Yonge and Gerrard. I'm just gonna cross Yonge here. There's less people on this side. On the topic of masks, I do wear them wherever they're required. I've also kind of liked starting to wear them outside on the colder days. I think it makes you feel a bit more comfortable and kind of prevents getting a runny nose and some of the colder effects of the coming winter season. So there are some benefits to it, in addition to personal protection of yourself and others. It's also my understanding from talking to someone who is a medical expert that there's very little in the way of medical reasons for someone not to wear a mask. And the number of people that legitimately would have a reason not to wear one would be something well under 1% of the population. Yet when you go on the subway, you definitely see double-digit percents of people not complying. Again, I'm not judging people. Rather, I'm judging the message from the officials saying you have to wear this, yet they do nothing to enforce it. I think that's a matter of the province putting these rules in place and then offloading enforcement to the city, who doesn't have the resources or personnel to do that. I don't know what the answer is. It just seems like a contradiction to me. This place won't be able to seat customers next week. All right, so we are in a very familiar place, heading south on Yonge Street towards Dundas Square. There is the Eaton Center on the other side of the street. The province did say that stores and malls would be able to offer curbside pickup, and that shopping malls can designate a spot outdoors where various retailers can arrange curbside pickups. I don't think that idea is necessarily going to work very well in a mall like the Eaton Center. There is the Eaton Center. This is the intersection of Yonge and Dundas. There's usually no shortage of buskers and religious preachers here.
Jésus-Christ continue à sauver.
Stay saving.
Tu n'as pas cru à
If you
Jésus-Christ.
didn't believe in Jesus Christ.
Those preachers sound borderline angry to me. And there's the look north up Yonge Street. So it'll be really interesting to see what this area is like a Friday from now. This would typically be one of the busiest and most exciting times to be in this area. But without the mall open and only essential stores open, really this area is only going to be serving locals, at least according to the wishes of the province of Ontario, which I think would in turn have a ripple effect of just massacring a lot of these businesses who are here because so many people gravitate towards this area in the first place. But I think I will end this video. Thanks for watching and listening to my thoughts and ramblings on this topic. I'll actually head down into the subway station. Actually, I think I'll start live streaming from here. I was going to do a live stream down Bathurst tonight, but since I'm here and it's kind of lively, I think that'll be not a terrible idea. And who knows where this will take me. Well, thanks for watching, guys. There are links to my Patreon account and Instagram account in the description if you wish to support the channel financially. You can look into a Patreon membership or a YouTube channel membership. Also, don't forget to check out my other channel, Johnny Stumbles. I post videos from there from time to time, similar to the ones I post on this channel, just crappier. And I will do the odd live stream from that channel. Alright, thanks again, guys. I will catch you on the next one.